Fargo build part 5 and the final. I'm going to put this out here on this video, and I'm going to say that this is the final build series of this truck. At the end of this video, it will be driving out of the shop. Fingers crossed. So I'm getting into that harness, and like I said, I was going to explain some of the stuff in detail. So I've gone through and I've pulled out stuff that we're not going to use. So some of those wires are not irrelevant to anything that we are doing. I've started to organize the runs, so all this stuff is in cab. Some of it's up to the harness, or to the column, sorry, and some of it's over to the gauge cluster and switches and stuff like that. But I've got it separated here, so you've got your front and your rear runs. And then I've got it all taped up and strung out. So I'm going to start looming all of this. It's all going to get loomed nicely. I've got a piece here which is, it looks like a lot of wire, but even to where that loom is far enough up the front before I need to branch off. So that stuff is just from Princess Auto, actually. It's just, I don't want to say cheap, but it's not expensive stuff. Just wire loom. The only thing that sucks with this style is you have to feed everything through. There's other styles that like clamp on and it's super easy just to put on at the end. But with this stuff being a tube, you have to do it now and put everything through it on the first go. So you got to be prepared, and you got to kind of have a roadmap and a game plan of where you're going. So I'm going to start doing that now, and then I'll get that fuse block and everything back in, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with this harness to hide it and how I'm going to run it. And it's funny how things work sometimes, but I don't know if you could hear that truck pulling up in the last video that I just shot, but this is just showed up. Let's see if I can't get this open here. I recently found this. Let me open this and I'll explain it. 12 volt fan control. So this is for the blower motor, and it's actually a resistor on, and you just up and down. So this replaces the old school style of having all your resistors and all that stuff for fan on different low, medium, high settings, and way less wires too, because you don't need to be jumping all over the place to different volts or however they do that. I'm not exactly sure on how that controls the speed, but I know it does. But this is the new solution. You got 3 wires. You plumb your power and your grounds to this sucker, and you've got regulated fan control or modulation, whatever you want to call it. Up, down, off, done. Super easy. Hopefully that works. It was like 20 bucks, I think, from Amazon. So if you're looking to do old school builds, that's I think that's a problem solver right there. That's a little solution to simplifying it and being able to modulate your fan. I'll get that in. I'll show you that when it's all together. There we go. I got the front and the rear runs loomed up. Rears just run obviously excessively long, but I want to get it all mounted, and as we start getting to where it needs to splice off, like for the fuel tank and the headache rack lights, I'll just poke the wires out from there, and then we'll put some smaller loom on those ones. But looks less scary already. That's it. So I got my 2. These got to come through the firewall, and front, rear, and start getting those mounted. So I'm going to work on that now, and I'll show you that when I get her in. Just going to grab a shot of this before I put it in and bury it. This is how we're picking up the tach signal. So autometer adapter kit, diesel tach adapter. These work really well. It's super simple. All you do is put that guy on your alternator, and whatever it does inside this box, you get your outfeed for your tach, and that's how you can get your RPM signal on a diesel. It super simplifies the whole process. I used this on the other 12 valve swap that I did, and it worked perfectly the first time. It instantly has a tach. Details. I keep talking about little details. Here's one that you would never see or never know about. Alternator power cable. I've gone in and ground that isolator out to fit the big cable because we are running some big boy stuff. This truck is going to have winches and it's dual battery out back, so I want everything to be big. So I've ground that out to fit the bigger cable instead of just like throwing it out. A lot of guys would probably be like, oh, it doesn't fit, chop it off or delete it. or not run big cable. And I've also cut off that clocking pin right there, which orientates it pointing out. I've got rid of that so that I can put this, hang on a sec. It used to point back like that. I'm gonna clock it and rotate it that way because this cable is gonna go down there around the cross member and up to the starter. Same thing, I've got some other stuff going on that's gonna go all in one harness down and around, and you'll never see any of this wiring. But I'll show you that when I get there. And there we go. We've got this side all put together. So I've got the EGT probe wire ran here with the oil feed line, and I've actually used stainless steel tie wire to attach those so that you can't really see it. It hides, blends in kind of. That jumps down to the alternator power wire, and then I've also got that tach sensor on the alternator, and the wire joins the alternator wire and the EGT wire together, and that's all in a sleeve down and around. I'll show you that from the bottom here. So it's extremely difficult to see, but that's kind of the whole point. But you can see that it's all in the cladding or whatever you want to call it. I'm having a brain fart here. But that comes down around. I just got to get it mounted. It's going to go across the cross member and then up to the starter. And I'll show you that on the other side. So like I said, I got to get this mounted up to that cross member so it's all tidy and you can't see it. But that power wire comes up to the starter, and then the other two wires jump off here and go into the cab. I'm going to tape all that up so that junction is nice and tidy. And then I'll show you what we got going on this side when I get there. Well, where are we at? I've been sick for a bit, so I've only been able to get a couple hours here and there of work on the truck lately, but I'm feeling better and we're back at it. First week of actually being in the shop for more than just a couple hours at a time. I ended up having to get a drive shaft made. All the material that I was able to find, I was going to have to machine the ID of it to fit the yokes, and my little lathe is not long enough to handle that. So, nice new retube drive shaft with our new length that we needed. Balanced, ready to go. That should be a good little unit for this truck. I've got all my wiring pulled through the firewall that has to deal with the gauges and the power and all that stuff. All the battery cables are run. I got a little pass through in the floor there. I picked up the U-bolt for the other side that's sitting over there. And I had to redo some of the wiring. I had to pull some of the stuff back through the runs and all that. So I'm going to get cleaned up and I'll show you what everything looks like and what I've done. Okay, so I got this fuse box back out just to kind of reorganize it as I go. I'm learning this harness kind of as I'm doing this. And I had this all kind of together and just run up into the dash. And it was all just one big chunk. So now I've split this up and I've gone back in here and reorganized this a little bit. So I've got this. This is down to the floor. That's your dimmer switch. And then this one, these will all go up to the headlight switch. And I think what I'm going to do is replace this old Dodge one with a brand new universal Chevy one and put the Chevy pigtail on it. So if that ever fails, you can just get a brand new headlight switch from wherever and you're good to go. Same with the Ford dimmer switch. So this is pre-wired for a Chevy GM style dimmer switch, and this one has the Dodge one. I'm trying to figure out what I did with that. It's sitting here somewhere right here. So that's just a different style plug. So instead of butchering this harness and putting this old school one in, I just got one of these on the way. I think it was like $9 and it plugs right into this harness. So it just makes sense to do it that way. And same with the dimmer switch. We'll just use, because this kit came with the plug-ins for GM stuff. So anyways, like I said, for dimmer switch, that's your high beam, low beam control. This is going to come up to the headlight switch. That's lights on. This is all steering column. This is all turn signals and brakes, hazards, all that stuff. This is the ignition, so this will all come over to the ignition switch, and then this is actually up into the dash for all the gauges, fan, and all the other good stuff. So I got a pretty good handle on having that all organized, and it's all loomed and taped. So once I get it in there, it's going to look super tidy and none of the wires are exposed. Keep on keeping on, we're getting there. I got the fuse box back in. It's kind of difficult to see down under the dash here, but again, that's kind of the point. But you can see I've got my runs coming up, and then everything that's coming over and out of the firewall. I still got to make a grommet for that hole. Probably gonna 3D print something so I can, like with a slit in it, so I can put it over it and then restrain it. But I'm happy with all that. It's all nice and tidy. And if you're looking at the truck, this is disconnected right now just so I got room to work, but it's all clear. This is for the dimmer switch that's going to sit right there. But you really got to get up underneath the dash and look to see any wires, which makes me really happy because I hate seeing all sorts of colors of wires. Usually when you look underneath the dash of a truck, it's just an absolute rat's nest. And this one is not. It is very tidy. It's all restrained. It's all sheathed. Looking good. This takes a lot of time, but it's worth it. Working on pulling power up front for the winch and fans. And I just want to drop this in here. So I got the air and I blew the frame out, and it's kind of hard to see, but I've launched all of the metal shavings and everything from inside of the frame out from cutting and working in there and putting the steering box back on and drilling some holes. So we got nothing to be abrasive on the power wires. So this is hot power coming through. Big one for the winch, and I got the small one in there for the fans, and those are direct to battery power. I'm going to throw that in there now, but I'm going to drop in that little thing, and I'll show you how I got this all wired in. Another make it happen solution tool. I needed to reach deep into the frame to cut the crossmember or clearance a crossmember so I can run battery cables up to the front where the winch is going to be. So I've got a chuck that I just took the Morse taper out of, 1/2 inch fine thread bolt, welded that to just a piece of shaft that I found around, lathed it down in the machine so I could fit it in my drill. And that is a Super Extendo hole saw. So I had to clearance that one. Then I put that in there, got to the next one because I couldn't reach up inside there with anything else. And now I've got room to bring those cables through the frame nice and tidy up to our connector for the winch. I'll drop a couple pictures here of that so you can see the hole that I put in there. And can't forget a ground. That's not in a sheath because it's just a ground, and I really don't care if it touches the frame. Should be good though. So let's get to the other side. Hard to see under here, but might be able to explain this. So we've got a power lead coming from the battery and a ground that run up to here. So I've got a distribution post here, jumps off with full-size wire, picks up the starter, but then also continues up front with that wire for the winch. So that winch has a full direct route to the battery and the ground. So the ground comes up, drops off here, picks up the engine, and again, that engine ground is directly linked back to the battery and not relying on the frame to ground through it. Alternator wire comes and picks up at the starter and feeds everything back. And then we've got the power for our harness in the cab, and this is the fusible link right here. So I'm going to leave this open and exposed because if it ever burns up, you'll be able to see it right away and it's not hidden. That's the only reason this wire is exposed, because that's actually a fusible link to protect the circuits in the truck. So that should work out pretty good. And then in the back for the winch, the same thing. We're going to run directly from the battery out to the back and have a direct line. So that should all work out well, so you can winch and not be lagging or burn up the starter post, because a lot of guys will just come and run to the starter and then they're forward, but you're relying on this stud to carry the load. So we've put a power post in here and everything just comes straight through. We're good to go. And then you're not running double wires back and forth, so it doesn't have It literally has one power wire, the ground's behind it, one ground, and our harness, fuel lines through the frame, and we don't have a bunch of extra stuff running back and forth. It just tidies it up, simplifies it, and it just makes it nice and clean. Bam, there we go. How nice is that? So these Dean's connectors, I think they're called. I can't remember. I think that's what this style is called. These are way overkill size for what we're doing. These are for like a 2.0 gauge, and we have 2 gauge. So I had to get a little creative with the crimps inside of them just because they are meant for bigger gauge wire. But the reason why we got these ones is because they're rated for like 300 amp continuous duty or something like that. Like you'll never burn these up, and they'll never get hot. But they have these nice little waterproof grommets with the waterproof end. The only ones I could find that were kind of like actually weatherproof and seemed like nice quality. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's all loomed, it's all strapped. So that'll be boom up on the bumper. You can plug in a winch there or the jumper cables to jump this truck or something else. I'll show you that obviously once I get that all put together, but that one's kind of done. I'm happy with that. It's nice. Oh yeah, look at that. I got this alternator run all mounted. This is slick. Let's see if I get the phone in there. Comes down, hugs the block, up over the cross member, onto the cross member, hides back across, pops out there, picks up our run. So tidy. Drilled and tapped, 1/4-20 stainless bolts with the retainers, no tech screws. Do it right. It only takes a couple extra minutes, and that is way ahead of a self-tapper. I'm happy with that. This is sick. I thought I already had a shot of this in my video, but I don't think I don't. So I'm going to show this here now. Again, this is why these filters are all just dry. I work behind them. The oil filter's full and on because I'm done over there now. But hang on. Here we go. Whoa. So behind that fuel filter, get out of the way, we have the secondary harness. This is our return fuel line, and we've just jumped in with the water temp sensor. Focus. It doesn't really matter. Anyways, water temp sensors in the back of the head there comes here. And then I've also snuck in the fan sending unit. It's a water temp sensor, but it grounds out when it opens or closes, however that works. And I've hidden it right there because I had another boss to put that in. And then we've got the boost line coming down, and the black is the oil pressure. So all of that comes up into this nice little harness, and then it gets taped so it's protected across and in. So all of that is also hidden on this side of the engine. Pretty slick, actually. From the top, you can't see anything. You open the hood, there's nothing there but the motor. This is turning out pretty nice. I've spent a lot of time down in this little zone here making this all tidy. I'm just working my way out to the back now. And like I said before, I'll show you that when it's all tidied up. But I forgot about this little section, and I wanted to add that in there. This is the little details like I'm talking about. This stuff takes so much time, but it's worth it to just do it right the first time, be nice and tidy, and never have to come back into it or have any problems with it later. One and done. Moving along. This isn't exactly how I intended or planned this to go, just because I'm using different style mounting than what I planned, but it's all in there. I even put the fuel lines in the old rad hose so that it can't chafe here or anything inside of this backer plate that I can't see. So that actually pops out right there. This is just clamped here for now because I'm still waiting on the e-brake calipers to show up so I can move this forward or back or figure out what I want to do with that, but that's going to live on that plate. But on the other side of this bracket, there's obviously rivets, bolts, and stuff that are on the inside, and I don't want those fuel lines chafing on it. I'm trying to make this thing roll out of here the first time and not have a single problem and never have a problem down the road. It's all thought about, it's all protected. So those are all ran down. I had to just zap strap the return line to the feed line just because I don't have a big enough one to get all two, and I don't want to squish anything. I don't care about the power. The power can get squished, but the fuel lines I want to just be there and not like squish down, because it's not hard to squish it. And this is a suction system with the lift pump not pushing. It comes down around. Once the e-brake's tight in there, it'll look good, but it's all tidy. It's all mounted. A couple more zap straps to straighten everything out. And then that umbilical cord comes up here, and I've actually gone through another rad hose. I got to do something here. I don't know what. I've got to this point. This is where I'm at. Pops out and over, and then up into the box. Hang on, I gotta move some tools. I put the rad hose there because it's kind of a crappy spot to jump through, but I don't want to put a hole in the frame here. I didn't want to start cutting into this because that's the main cross member for the whole box. That's the main rail. And then the plate on the inside, our batteries are right there, so I couldn't even come on the inside here. This is a 3/8 plate that everything's sitting on, and that actually runs all the way out to the edge here. I'll show you that from the top. But that comes out. I might even just get another chunk of rad hose and just continue that up into there, and you'll never see it. Night switch, so all the grounds are on the night switch right here, kind of tucked up in a way you wouldn't know that it's there unless you know that it's there. Shuts all the power off to the whole truck, so you'll never have dead batteries. And then up and in, and that's what I was saying, this is that 3/8 plate, tank, batteries, so I couldn't even come in any further. That was my only option, is on the outside there. But it's going to work out. Just got to put a little bit more effort into tidying it all up and make it thoughtful and put it together nicely. Again, obviously restrain all of these, keep plumbing everything up and in. We're getting there. We're moving along. More little details that you would never know about, but just takes time. Probably got an hour or so just into this little piece. This is the fuel shutdown, and this is the piece that I have with the cable. And I've actually machined that down a little bit and squared off that edge because it wasn't that great, and then opened that hole up a little bit. But then I've had to take off the arm, and I've actually machined down both sides and opened up that hole so that I can get this. Let me back up here a bit to go in like that. Enough that I can actually get the cable through there and then pinch down. So this is kind of tedious, but once this is done, it'll look like this is actually a factory component, and I didn't butcher anything or just loop cable around and crimp it. I haven't really seen anyone do it like this, or this tidy, I guess you could say, because it's kind of a pain in the butt, but I'll show you that when I get it in. So there's our shutdown cable. Just gotta tighten that up, and pretty much we're good. I might drill a hole a little bit bigger in this bracket so that sits in there. That's actually a plasma tip consumable, but this kit didn't have a cable end, so I just use that. Works. It's just a metal cladding basically to protect the sheathing. Tighten that all up, and we've got our fuel shut down. So that just runs right through, and up in the cab there's our lever. Bam, pull that, truck shuts down. So, and like I was saying, most people would probably just like wrap this around, cable, bolt it. There was already kind of a bolt in there that they looked like they had just like squished the wire or the cable with the bolt. And that's actually a proper cable retainer put in there. Should work out nicely. Or I should say it's a lot tidier than doing it any other way. Got the U-bolt plate all modified and back in with that new U-bolt that's long enough. You can see if I come this way, it clears. I had to put a little bit of a bevel on that one, but chopped that one back, dropped it down, and then the other one I just put up on top, but I couldn't obviously run that rib all the way through because of the U-bolt there, so that's all done and clears again. Damn finger. Brake lines are started. See if I can see that. Comes in, over, down, across. I'll take it to the other side. Now we're on the other side. I don't ever consider myself an artist or artistic, but that is functional art in my opinion. So I've got my proportioning valve sitting down here instead of being up there just to kind of tuck it out of the way. That is an aftermarket factory style, but it's for disc brake. So that's a disc brake front and rear proportioning valve instead of just a manual dial one. I just thought it would be a little bit more proper, nicer, but it looks pretty cool. And then I've made my little curly cues up, you know, pigtails or moonshine still looking pieces out of the copper lines. Just got to get my main rear run down and out and brakes are done. Rear drive shafts all installed, and I've pulled out that old shock cross member sitting there. Did another run to Lordco, got some fluids, so we've got everything's filled up. I just finished doing that. Synchro max in the trans. You can only get 4 in the fill hole. You got to run 5 to protect that input bearing on these trucks. You add a little bit more, so I still got to pull the shifter off the top and do that. 2 liters in the 205 and 1540 in the engine. So we've got fluids. We're getting close. Headlights, turn signals, and marker lights are all rewired up the front and all are working. So this is all brand new, loomed as well. New plugs on the headlights. There's no reused wires up here at all except for the little pigtail that comes off the marker light, but brand new plugs. That's looking pretty good. And then in this little cubby, I've got another power pulled up, but this is where the windshield washer bottle is going to live, and the fan relays and the horn. So it's going to be a nice little pocket for all that stuff to live in and get it all mounted in there. And all the little details, everything's going to work. It's going to be nice. And the giant scary mess under here. So this has all been jumped and pigtailed and labeled, but we're getting into having all that dash wired in and put together. I'll show you that all when I get there, but it's all going to work, including the hazards, turn signal indicators, high beam indicators. We've got it all in that dash. It's going to be pretty slick. Moving along, it just takes time, but this is turning out nice and we're not rushing anything. We're doing it right and making it all function, everything working. That's my goal. Well, it's been about another week since my last little video that I took. And if you caught that other video, I've committed my ultimate sin of using self-tappers here, there, a bunch down in here. But that's because I was out of the 1/4 stainless button head bolts. So I got a bag of those. So everything that's tech screwed right now is going to get drilled out and nut certed, make it all happy. But I got this little cubby figured out. I pulled out the old battery tray that was in here. And we've got our windshield washer bottle, horn, and the relay for the fan. So that's all wired in. I ended up having to run a couple extra wires outside of my loom for the fan and the relay, but can't win them all. I still got to tidy that all up. So I'm going to pull all this apart again, clean it out, switch out all of those tech screws to nut certs and 1/4 bolts. But all the lights in the front are working. I haven't got the backs in yet, but the dash is all together. We had to kind of rework a few things. This harness is not the greatest. It was set up every time you hit the brakes, it would backfeed into all the turn signals and marker lights. So we had to separate that system and put a standalone power from the brake pedal switch out back for the brakes, and then run a separate tail light and turn signal out back. I'll show you that when I get it all in there, but we got it all figured out. It's all working. Let's jump up in here and have a look. So key on, got our switch panel comes up and stuff. Everything powers up. Our tack's jumping around right now because I don't have a solid ground. I need to add a battery to body ground. I don't have that right now, so it's kind of hunting. Lights on, everything comes on. Windshield washer powered up. That is engine shutdown. I showed you that. Ready to go. And then this is pretty cool. I think this is sweet. So we got indicator, high beam. That's pretty cool. And then hazards. That's all wired in. Fan control. So this is that little dial, that resistor, or can't remember what you would call it, but click on. So that's full. Dial it down. And off. So that's pretty slick. That all worked out. Wipers on. They're cycling, so all that linkage in the dash and everything worked out. It's all wired to the factory switch. And then we've got our gauge cluster, or our switch panel, sorry, down here. So this will be like dome lights and under dash lights, headache rack pods, front pods, and then we've got 3 extra for whatever we want to add later on. But that's all ready to go and wired up for all that stuff. I just got to put the lights on and wire the systems up. I've already pulled power down to this, so we just got to put the power out. And I even have lines out in the harness ready to go for headache rack lights and front pods. Everything's there. We just got to put the lights on and hook it all up for later on. But yeah, looking pretty good. This turned out nice. I'm happy with this. And it's as tidy as it can be under the dash. I got a little bit more to tidy up from underneath, but it's all in harnesses. And you can pull this whole dash out and pretty much, I don't want to say on your lap, but you can put it up on the dashboard and stuff and reach in there and work on other stuff. So it's got a big service loop on it. Looking good. I just got to ground better to stop that sucker from jumping around, and we're dialed. Hopefully be driving this thing in a couple days. And I forgot to add in too that the clutch safety cancel is wired in. So you have to have the clutch in to start the truck. It will not start unless the clutch is depressed. And we've got the reverse lights on the trans. So you put it in reverse, reverse lights will come on. So there you go. That's everything. I got everything working in this truck, and it's like it came from the factory, which is above what the truck previously had, because I know it didn't have reverse lights. I don't know if the safety cancel worked, and I don't even know if anything else worked, but it all does now. And my last feat to tie it off or finish it off is the horn actually working on the column, because I know before they had a button somewhere, I think that they had wired to the horn. So this, I'm gonna make this work. I've got all the bits and pieces. The horn is wired up to this. So that is the very last piece of everything in the factory orientation and all working like factory, like it should. Getting ready to put the bench seat back in, but it needed a little bit of love. The corners, you can see here and that side, we're starting to peel off. So this is how it's supposed to be factory wrapped around and nice. Obviously it's rotted away and just pulled off. So I did what every logical man would do. Got some baling wire and some zap straps, and I baling wired the spring back to the frame. And then there's already a bunch of holes kind of in the fabric here. You can see it. So I just poked a couple more and then zap strapped it all on so it's tidy. And then hit it with a little bit of black paint to make it kind of hide. Make it blend in a bit. You won't see this because it's tucked in the cab, but this was all that brown color, so it stuck out like a sore thumb. So a little bit of black paint just tidies it up. And then from the front side, once it's in the truck, that bench is actually in pretty good shape. So that probably just bought that thing another, I don't know, 5 years, a decade, who knows? Depends on how much this truck actually gets driven. But you can see, there you go, there's the color. That's what the top back looked like. So maybe I gotta do a little bit more down there. We'll tidy that up too. But it took me like 5 minutes. Just tidy it up. Well, where are we at? It's looking more like a truck. I've been fortunate enough to have buddy Brad give me a hand for the last little bit with all the electrical, and he came by the other day too and gave me a hand getting the doors and the hood on. Super thankful for the extra help from him, as Ryan has not been able to make it down to help me finish this. Took a bit of fiddling to get the doors on and lined up. I did have them marked where they were, but this truck has never had the best body lines to start with. We've done our best to put it back together. This hood gap was always been here, but it latches and functions properly like it should. And then this door was always really difficult to open, but we've got this one open and close nice. And of course, putting doors on, I got more work to do. So I gotta nutsert that and put some bolts in there. I've got some seals to go in here so that when this truck is parked and the windows are up, it doesn't all just go down into the door. Well, I'm here. Built a quick little shifter. Feels good. It's happy. I'm going to get some 1/4 grub screws for that. That's just what I have right now. So I got to run out and grab some. And then you won't see those sticking out. They'll be like flush with it. Tighten it down. It'll be nice. Paint it black. And then with the boot on it, it'll all be tucked away and hidden. Steering wheel's on. I just got to I just got to clean up the horn plates and stuff in there. Because if you touch the wire to the steering column, the horn goes off, but it won't through the switch or whatever control that you want to call that. So I got to clean that up and get that grounding. But other than that, everything's pretty much together. I got the bench seat in there. It's not bolted down, but you can see what I was talking about. You don't really see the top of that bench. Oh, I hear a Dodge. That's Brad right there coming back for the test drive. So let's get caught up here. Truck is running. I've got the back brakes on. I got the lights on. I just bled the fuel system out again, and I've trimmed up the inner fenders. There's not a lot left of them, but that's what makes the most sense and looks the best in there. So I'm going to put those on there. But I'll drop a couple other pictures and videos here of me doing the taillights. I forgot how much work it is to drill holes instead of using my plaza table, but that's all in there. I got some pictures to show you of that. And then I'll take you along for a ride. We're going to go get coffees in this in a little bit here. I just got to put coolant in it, put the tires on it, check some bolts, and we're out. My layout for the reverse lights and the turn signals. Like I was saying previous, we had to separate the turn signal from the brake circuit. They run the brake and the turn signal in the same wire down to the back. So every time you put power to the brakes, it would illuminate all the turn signals and marker lights. So every time you touch the brakes, all the other lights would come on. So we had to separate that system. And then here's my little setup so that I could actually push on the drill and get some holes punched in because I was sliding all over the place.
So Dad is going to be doing in the shop. So,
Okay, lights on?
Yes.
Brake lights?
Yep.
Right turn?
Yep.
Left turn?
Yep.
Hang on. Hazards, both orange?
Yep.
Okay, and reverse lights?
Yep.
Reverse is on?
Yep.
Got them all.
Wow, that's the end of the video.
Underside of the taillight wiring, all tidy and restrained. 1/4 drilled and topped. Everything's all taped up. Nice and tidy.
on a sec. That's vacuum. Where's your oil pressure?
This side on the block.
It's dark though, right?
Yeah, it's black.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Check the engine oil first to make sure that we got enough in there still.
Play catcher?
What's it looking like?
I don't know. It's been turning, so hard to tell.
We're need to add some.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Holy fuck.
Keep those fans on too. Beside the door, right there, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Down. Oh,
There we go.
and then the fans are right there beside you.
Yeah.
Alright. Here we go. Weird, I had it running this morning. It's still up here. Oh yeah.
At least you can hear it in there now.
Yeah, now you can actually hear it fucking.
Yeah, so it just needs to run for a bit.
Yeah. Well, you can hear it coming back in the tank too this morning.
Oh,
When
good.
I was pumping it and stuff, so it was cycling. So in the first couple attempts at starting the truck, it kept dying on me, and I realized that I was basically running on the fuel that was in the fuel filter, and I wasn't actually picking up from the tank. So I came up with this little contraption here to pressurize the fuel tank, and it was actually able to push the fuel from the tank up to the lift pump, and I was able to get it primed and bled out. And then in that last video that you just saw, I got the truck to idle, so I got all the air out of it, and from then on it was starting beautifully. Next day, we tried to go for a test drive yesterday, but didn't make it far. A couple issues that we ran into and problems we had to resolve. Number one, I had no oil pressure, but that's because I had the fitting at the dash cluster not quite tight enough. And I think I had too much line pushed in at the block, so it wasn't picking up. But as soon as I cut the tail at the block, I was getting oil dripping at my feet inside the cab, and that let me know that that fitting wasn't tight at the dash cluster. Soon as I tightened that up, it had oil pressure instantly. It runs about 65 PSI at idle cold, which is beautiful. The heater core is leaking on the floor in the dash, or on the floor from the dash area as well. So we pulled that off, bypassed it for now. I got to pull the heater core and heater box out to see where it's leaking from. There's 4 other hose clamps in there and 2 other hoses, so I'm pretty confident that's what the issue was. The water temp sensor was dripping at the back of the block, and a power steering line, the one that I flared, the fitting wasn't quite tight enough, so it was dripping a bit. Other than that, everything seems good. Now, the real problem. The clutch is not disengaging fully, so I cannot come to a stop in the truck. It still wants to drive. I cannot pull it out of gear. I cannot put it in gear. You have to start the truck in gear and go. And that's what that video was of me pulling it out of the shop. And I was trying to jump on the brakes and the clutch and stuff to see if I could free it up, but it will not let go. We've bled the slave and the master out a bunch of times. I got some air out of it to make sure that that's not our problem. I've even made a longer push rod, 2 longer push rods for the slave. It still is not disengaging. So we've got 3 plausible issues. Number 1, the clutch fork could be in backwards. It is plausible that that is the issue. I don't remember having the clutch fork off, but I got to get it out anyways. It's either the clutch fork or the clutch discs are frozen to the pressure plate and the flywheel. And I tried multiple times, even in 4 low, to slam the brakes and just really rock on this thing to try and let it skip free, and it's not letting go. So the last plausible problem is that the clutch is actually bad. This is a dual disc south bend, and I've done a bunch of research on it, and it's not hard to find people having this exact issue. So what does that mean for me? I got to pull the transmission out. And that's where I'm at today. I've got the shop cleaned up enough. I got to do a big sweep. I'm going to push this sucker back onto my nice heated pad here because it is freezing cold outside and I want to lay on a nice cold or a nice warm floor to do this. I could put it out on the hoist, but I ain't going outside. I'm hiding in here. I don't want to leave this. This is nice having heated shop, heated floors. So doing it on my back. It's not that bad. I got a trans jack. I'm going to get this thing out of here and see what it is. I'm hoping that it's just the clutch fork, and I don't remember pulling that clutch fork off. I never even took the clutch off this back of the engine because I had no reason to. It came from a running, driving truck, so it all looked good, and I don't have the clutch alignment tool for this South Bend clutch, or even the Dodge for that matter. So I got to come up with something to realign that when I get there. I might have to just go buy a piece or something. I'll figure something out once I figure out my issue. If I have to pull that clutch off the back of the motor, that's what I'll do. But it's pretty much all together. We got the bumper on there yesterday. License plates are on. Windshield washers, squirters are all hooked up. I got to get the sun visors in and the rear view mirror. I think I showed this yesterday, but I built a little shifter. I got to get some grub screws for it to get rid of the quarter 20s that are sticking out. This is the tack box. I've got it long and hang so I can set it once we actually get this truck running and driving. Seats bolted down. Man, I was going for coffees yesterday. We were close. This is all tidied up and put to bed. Everything's got clamps on it. Everything's tight. Still got to do the shelf and the toolbox over this, but I'm not concerned about that whatsoever right now. A couple more tech screws to switch out for the Nutserts quarter 20 bolts, but she's looking good. This is a beast of a truck. I'm excited to drive this thing. I'm not looking forward to pulling this transmission out, but I got to get it done. Trans is out, and we have found that the clutch discs are both semi-welded to the inner flywheel dual mass plate. So we're going to try and separate this with minimal damage and see if we can't rescue this. They're just frozen to that disc. Got everything separated. It popped apart. No problem. You can see just the faintest bit of rust locked it to that inner plate. So I'm going to clean all this up and we're going to put this back together and we should be rocking. Midway through here, everything's all Scotch-Brighted. It's looking pretty good. There's a faint mark, I don't know if you can see it on camera, from the clutch pad sitting there. I can't quite get that out, but I'm just Scotch-Brighting this. Where are my pads? Anyways, brand new red Scotch-Brights, cleaning it up. These all look good. None of the material pulled off anywhere. It's just, these are metallic, so a little bit of moisture and that metallic, I guess, stuck. But everything looks good. It's a used clutch. It's a high-performance aftermarket clutch, so it should be good. I mean, there's some wear, but that's to be expected with push and power. It wasn't bad at all. Like 45 minutes. I got my little setup here. I got a nice heated floor, polished concrete. It's a dream to work here. Trans jack on my dolly, so I got the height. And access is phenomenal. No complaints there. So, I'm going to put this back together. Brad is on his way. He actually has the proper 6-speed clutch alignment tool because he has a 6-speed Dodge and he's got the tool because he did a clutch recently. So use that to put this all back together and we should be rocking. T-case came off the back, no problem. I just undid the bolts, slid it out, and basically bench pressed it on myself, rolled out. Trans jack underneath the transmission. Drop that cross member, hits 6 bolts. It came out and then trans came out. Like I said, 45 minutes I had it out and had it diagnosed. So we're moving ahead here. Can't wait to get it in. Brad just dropped off the magical piece. Got a fresh coffee. Let's go. Clutch is back in. That took me all of 15 minutes to install it and torque it down. I'm always talking about serviceability, so I wanted to show this. It's hard to see, but I literally just sat here on this stool and installed this clutch, and this is going in super easy. And then I always put a little bit of grease on the end of that, and you can tell if it's pushing into the pilot bearing or not. Just to double check and make sure that you're actually in that pilot bearing all the way. But nice and smooth. It's torqued down 45 foot-pounds. I put a little bit of grease on the pins for the dual disc. I guess you can't see them. Anyways, a little bit of grease on the pin so it can slide, and then all the reds are marked back up because that's the alignment for the weight. But I'm gonna crawl out of here. I'm gonna show you this so I can laugh because I've never had it so easy. Literally sat there with my head through the transmission tunnel on my stool and put that clutch in. And that is not a little clutch. That is a dual disc, 2 friction discs, plus the middle flywheel and that big pressure plate. That is a heavy clutch. And it went easy. I think that's the easiest clutch I've ever installed because of my access and how serviceable this setup is. Okay, gotta get the trans in. Let's go. Oh yeah! Woo! Oh. Okay. Woo!
Wednesday, 3 days down, 2 days to go into the weekend. And even more exciting, tomorrow is half price deals day here on Sun FM. You can take advantage of 50% off gift cards and products from local Cowichan Valley businesses. Is tomorrow morning, starting at 10 o'clock, and it is tomorrow only. So take advantage of it. There's lots of stuff that sells out almost immediately. My advice to you, go on there tonight before you go to sleepies. Figure out what you want. Set an alarm for like 9:45 tomorrow morning. Log in, make sure your payment info is ready, make sure your account's all set up, because at 10 o'clock when stuff opens, people are clicking like it's their job and checking out with as many gift cards as they can. So it's competition, it's a game, try and land as much as you can. 50% off is a steal of the deal. And it's on tomorrow only, myhalfpricedealsnow.com. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. We'll chat again tomorrow starting at 2 o'clock. And until then, as always, have a good one and be safe. See ya.
Oh yeah. Woo. Right there. Right there. Just about to get the shifter tower back on, and this is my perfect opportunity to add my 5th quart to this trans. This is something I had to do anyways. These trans will take 4 liters or quarts or whatever you want to say up to the fill hole in the trans, but a lot of guys are saying that they run 5 in them, and I as well did 5 in mine when I had it because it helps oil the front input bearing, which is this guy up here, and that's a common failure in these trans is that input bearing, and this has the bigger upgraded shaft and everything in there, so that input shaft and bearing and everything is aftermarket. So dump an extra one in up top. We got 5 in there, doing everything we can for preventative maintenance on this setup because I kind of know about them. I broke 3 or 4 of these transes and this clutch in a previous south bend, so I've been here before. And if you don't believe me, there's my input shaft from mine. I sent that with the clutch through the bell housing. I put 4 holes in the bell housing when I did it the first time. I'll dig up a picture of all my broken pieces. It's kind of funny to look at and look back on. I ended up putting an Eaton Fuller 6-speed 5-ton dump truck trans in my Cummins to hold the power, but memories. Well, there we go. I got it done. I just went for a rip around the block, and holy F is this thing a handful. Instantaneously, broadside, any gear, it's dry out. It is something else, that's for sure. I'm going to do a walk around video and a couple rolling shots and that later on. But for now, that's the end of this video. I got a couple things to tidy up on this. Obviously, we've got the battery box to finish up and the trans tunnel. It needs a stiffer return spring on the throttle because it's way too sensitive. A couple odds and ends, but there you go. There is a come and swap Fargo done. That has been almost a 3-month project from drive in, drive out, but that is a turnkey swap, everything working, 99% finished. I'll sign out on that one, and I'll catch you later.